Turning now to new developments in the Jeffrey Epstein saga, as pressure to release the government's case files continues to grow, despite the president's claim that the issue is a Democratic Party hoax. The Republican chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, announced late yesterday that the Justice Department would begin complying with his committee's subpoenas for documents and information tied to the case, and will start handing over that material on Friday. The news came just hours after President Trump's former Attorney General Bill Barr sat for a closed-door deposition as the first witness in the Oversight Committee's investigation into the Epstein files.
The most powerful man in the world just said that he couldn't care less about releasing files that could potentially destroy careers and reputations across Washington and beyond. But here's the twist. These same files likely contain his own name. We're talking about the Jeffrey Epstein documents, and Donald Trump's handling of this case has created something we rarely say in politics: a split between Trump and his most loyal supporters. Before we jump into the details, please consider subscribing to the channel. And also do like, share, and comment. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just any criminal. He was a financier who built his entire life around knowing powerful people, politicians, business leaders, celebrities. Epstein collected relationships like trophies. When he died in jail in 2019, he took those secrets with him, or so it seemed. The government has roughly 100,000 pages of documents from their Epstein investigations. Think about that number for a moment. 100,000 pages. That's not just a case file. That's an encyclopedia of connections, conversations, and potentially damaging information. Trump knew this when he campaigned in 2024. He promised voters he would release these files. It was a popular promise, especially among his base, who believed the government was hiding the truth about Epstein's powerful friends. But promises made during campaign don't always survive contact with reality. Trump and Epstein were friends, not casual acquaintances. The relationship goes back to the late 1980s. In 2002, Trump told a magazine that Epstein was a terrific guy who was a lot of fun to be with. Trump even noted that Epstein liked beautiful women, and many of them are on the younger side. Flight logs showed Trump flew on Epstein private jets 7 times between 1993 and 1997. There are photos of them together at parties. Trump's contact information was in Epstein's address book.
But K-File's extensive reporting now shows the two shared a close social circle for nearly 2 decades, from private jet flights to high-profile parties, and that's only part of the story. Photos, flight logs, and court records help reveal how long their personal history really was.
This wasn't a distant business relationship. These men moved in the same social circles for years, but something changed. Trump claims they had a falling out, though the timeline keeps shifting. Sometimes Trump says it happened in 2004 over a real estate deal. Other times he says Epstein was stealing employees from his Mar-a-Lago resort. Most recently, Trump claimed he kicked Epstein out after Epstein behaved inappropriately with a member's teenage daughter. The truth is probably simpler. Powerful men often have complicated relationships that end badly. During his 2024 campaign, releasing the Epstein files seemed like an easy win for Trump. His supporters loved the idea. They believed these documents would expose Democrats and other political enemies. Trump's Attorney General Pam Bondi seemed to support this. In February, she told Fox News the files were sitting on her desk to review. But in July happened. The Justice Department released a memo saying they found no evidence of a secret client list. They also said no more documents would be released. Essentially, they were closing the book on public disclosure. Trump supporters erupted. They felt betrayed. These were people who had supported Trump partly because he promised transparency about Epstein. The anger was so intense that Trump did something unusual. He turned on his own base. He called their concern a Democrat hoax and said he didn't want their support anymore if they kept pushing the issue. Instead of releasing the 100,000 pages the government already has, Trump's Justice Department asked courts to unseal grand jury materials. Grand jury files are different. They are usually much smaller and contain limited information. In Epstein case, they are roughly 70 pages compared to 100,000 pages. 3 different federal judges rejected these requests, but their reasoning was fascinating. Judge Richard Berman said the Justice Department's request seemed like a diversion from the real files. He pointed out that asking for 70 pages while sitting on 100,000 pages looked suspicious. Another judge, Paul Engelmeyer, was even harsher. He suggested the government was creating an illusion of transparency rather than providing real disclosure. Think about this strategically. If you wanted to look like you were being transparent without actually being transparent, this is exactly you would do. As for small files, court will reject while keeping the big files secret. In July, something unprecedented happened. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanchard, who used to be Trump's personal lawyer, conducted a 10-hour interview with Ghislaine Maxwell in prison.
Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison. And so a lot of people want to know if she's going to turn in powerful people. And I know you've talked in the past about Prince Andrew, and you've criticized Bill Clinton's behavior. I'm wondering, do you feel that she's going to turn in powerful men? How do you see that working out?
Maxwell is Epstein's former partner, currently serving 20 years for sex trafficking. The interview was supposed to gather more information about Epstein's network, but the timing raised questions. Why interview Maxwell now? Why use someone who used to work for Trump personally?
Justice Department releases the audio and transcripts from its recent interview with Jeffrey Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell. During her interview, Maxwell said she never saw Donald Trump act inappropriately when at Epstein's house. Soon after the interview, Maxwell was transferred to a lower security prison.
Victims' families were outraged. They saw this as giving Maxwell a platform to rewrite history, adding fuel to the fire. The Wall Street Journal reported on a bizarre birthday letter allegedly sent by Trump to Epstein in 2003. The letter contained suggestive content and was signed Donald. Trump immediately called it fake and threatened to sue the newspaper. But the timing was terrible. It came just as his administration was already under fire for handling the Epstein files. Whether the letter is real or not, it highlights the broader problem. There are documents out there that mention Trump, and people want to know what they say. Republican Congressman James Comer's Oversight Committee decided to take matters into their own hands. They subpoenaed the Justice Department for all Epstein-related documents. This creates a political problem for Trump. His own party is not demanding transparency he seems unwilling to provide. The committee has also subpoenaed high-profile witnesses including former Presidents Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, along with several former attorneys general and FBI directors. This isn't just about Epstein anymore. It's about credibility and trust. Trump's MAGA base supported him partly because they believed he would drain the swamp and expose government secrets. The Epstein files represented everything they thought he would fix. Powerful people protecting each other while ordinary Americans were kept in the dark. When Trump reversed course and called their concerns a hoax, it broke something fundamental in that relationship. Polling shows most Americans disapprove of how Trump's administration has handled the Epstein investigation. That includes many of his own supporters. The Epstein files controversy reveals something important about how power works in Washington. Even presidents face limits on what they can disclose. Maybe Trump learned something about those files that changed his mind about releasing them. Maybe his own legal team advised against it. Maybe the intelligence community pushed back. Or maybe Trump realized that transparency is easier to promise than to deliver, especially when you might be mentioned in the documents yourself. We still don't know what's in those 100,000 pages. We don't know exactly how Trump's name appears in the files, though we know it's mentioned. We don't know if other powerful figures are pushing behind the scenes to keep the files secret. We don't know what intelligence agencies might have told the administrations about the documents. What we do know is that this case has created an unusual split between a president and his base. That's significant because Trump's political power has always come from that unwavering support. The Epstein case touches on something deeper than politics. It's about accountability for the powerful. When wealthy, connected people face justice, the public wants to know the whole truth, but the truth is often complicated. Real transparency can hurt innocent people along with guilty ones. It can damage national security or ongoing investigations. The challenge is distinguishing between legitimate secrecy and convenient cover-ups. Trump promised his supporters he would be different from other politicians. He would release the files others wanted to hide. But now he's acting exactly like the establishment he once criticized. Whether this damages his political future depends on how his supporters ultimately react. Some will stick with him no matter what. Others feel genuinely betrayed. The Epstein files are not going away. Congress will continue investigating. Journalists will keep digging. And somewhere in government buildings across Washington, those 100,000 pages sit waiting, full of secrets that powerful people clearly don't want revealed. What are your thoughts on this matter? Please let me know in the comment section. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Most powerful man in the world just sat down with Vladimir Putin for 3 hours in Alaska, and they walked away with absolutely nothing to show for it. If you want to stay ahead of the biggest geopolitical stories shaping our world, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. Donald Trump promised he would end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours.
Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, I will have the disastrous war between Russia and Ukraine settled. It will be settled quickly.
That was over 6 months ago. Yesterday's summit in Anchorage was supposed to be his big moment, his chance to prove he really is the ultimate deal maker. Instead, we got awkward silence and empty promises. Let me break down what actually happened, and more importantly, what it means for the war that's been raging for over 3 years. Trump rolled out the red carpet for Putin. Literally, fighter jets flew overhead. The two leaders shook hands like old friends. Putin even got a ride in the presidential limo they call the Beast. For a guy who's been treated like a global outcast since invading Ukraine, this was pure gold. But the warm welcome didn't translate into results. After nearly 3 hours of talks, both leaders faced the cameras. They read short statements, took zero questions, and basically admitted they got nowhere.
So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO.
Putin wasn't much better. He talked about eliminating the root causes of the conflict. That's diplomatic speak for Ukraine's needs to surrender. So what went wrong? First, let's talk about what Russia actually wants. Putin's demands haven't changed much since this war began. He wants Ukraine to give up on joining NATO forever. He wants them to disarm. And he wants to keep all the Ukrainian territory his forces have captured. That's about 19% of the entire country. We're talking about Crimea, which Russia grabbed back in 2014. Most of the eastern Donbas region, parts of 4 other provinces. Putin also wants the West to lift sanctions, the same sanctions that have hammered Russia's economy for the past 3 years. Trump came into this meeting talking tough. He had threatened severe consequences if Putin didn't agree to a ceasefire.
It was always going to be I was going to meet with President Putin, and then after that, I'm going to call the leaders and President Zelensky. I'm going to call President Zelensky, and then I'll call, probably in that order, the leaders.
He had already slapped massive tariffs on India for buying Russian oil, 50% tariffs. That's essentially a trade embargo. Trump linked in a Fox News interview right after the summit. He said he might wait 2 or 3 weeks before imposing new sanctions. Maybe that's not exactly the decisive action he promised. Here's what's really fascinating about this whole situation. The meeting happened in Alaska, and the location choice tells everything about how Putin thinks. Alaska used to be Russian territory. Russia sold it to America back in 1867 for $7.2 million. Putin's team specifically requested Alaska as the venue. They said it was logical since the two countries are neighbors there, but there's deeper symbolism at play. This is Putin showing the world that Russia still matters, that he can sit as an equal with the American president on what used to be Russian soil. The optics were a massive win for Moscow. For 3 years, Western leaders have refused to meet with Putin. They've called him a war criminal. The International Criminal Court had issued an arrest warrant against him. Yesterday, he got the full presidential treatment on American soil. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Zelensky wasn't even invited to Alaska. He had to watch from the sidelines while 2 other men discussed his country's future. That's got to sting. Trump's team held a video call with European leaders earlier in the week. Germany's chancellor was there. So were the leaders of Britain, France, Italy, Poland, and Finland. They all basically begged Trump not to make any deals without including Ukraine. Looks like they got their wish, but probably not for the reasons they wanted. The truth is, this summit exposed some uncomfortable realities about Trump's approach to foreign policy. He's been talking about ending this war since before he took office. He suggested land swap, where Ukraine gives up territory in exchange for peace. He's even used the word divvy when talking about how Ukraine and Russia might split things up. But yesterday showed that Putin isn't interested in Trump's deal-making skill. At least not yet. Russia thinks it's winning this war. Putin's forces have been making slow but steady gains in eastern Ukraine. They've got more troops, more weapons, and they are betting they can outlast Ukrainian resistance. Why would Putin agree to a ceasefire now when he thinks time is on his side? The economic pressure isn't working either. Yes, sanctions have hurt Russia's economy, but not enough to force Putin's hand. Russia's still selling oil to China and India. They're still funding their war machine, and here's the kicker. During yesterday's talks, Putin didn't just discuss Ukraine, he pushed for new business deals with America, space cooperation, technology partnerships, Arctic development projects. This guy's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. So where does this leave Ukraine? In a really tough spot. Trump's already putting pressure on Zelensky to make a deal. His exact words to the Ukrainian presidents are that he got to make a deal. Trump also pointed out that Russia is a big power and they are not. That's not exactly a ringing endorsement of Ukraine's position. This war's still raging while diplomats talk. Just during yesterday's summit, Russia launched 85 drone attacks on Ukrainian cities. Ukraine shot down 61 of them. Ukrainian forces hit back with their own drone strikes on Russian territory. People are still dying while politicians pose for photos. So, what has this summit really accomplished? Putin got international legitimacy, Trump got embarrassed, and Ukraine got a harsh reminder that their fate might be decided by other people. The next step is supposed to be a three-way meeting Trump, Putin, and Zelensky, all in the same room. Putin even joked that next time they should meet in Moscow. Can you imagine an American president visiting Moscow while Russia is still occupying Ukrainian territory? Trump said he might get a little hate for that idea. That's probably the understatement of the year. But here's the bigger picture. This summit showed that ending the Ukraine war isn't going to be as simple as Trump promised on the campaign trail. Putin's not desperate for a deal. He's got time and momentum on his side. Trump's threats haven't changed Putin's calculations, and Ukraine's got limited options as long as they are dependent on American support. So what do you think? So what do you think happens next? Will Trump follow through on his sanctions threats? Can Ukraine survive without stronger American backing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this analysis was helpful, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that matter.
What's your message to Vladimir Putin? Mr. Putin, did you underestimate Ukraine?
We are about to witness a repeat of one of the most dangerous diplomatic moments in recent history. Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are meeting alone this Friday in Alaska. No advisors, no Ukraine. Just two men in a room deciding the fate of a war that's already killed hundreds of thousands. Sound familiar? It should, because we have seen this movie before.
President Trump is arriving right now at the presidential palace in Helsinki, Finland, for his first summit with President Putin.
July 2018, Helsinki, Finland. Trump walks out of a private meeting with Putin and does something no American president has ever done. He sides with Russia over his own intelligence agencies. On live television in front of the world, the question wasn't subtle. A reporter asked Trump about Russian election interference. Trump responds, Putin told him Russia didn't do it, and Trump believed him. Fiona Hill was Trump's top Russia advisor at the time. She was watching from the side of the stage. She later said she considered pulling a fire alarm just to end the press conference. Think about that. A senior White House official wanted to fake an emergency to stop her own president from talking. Now we are doing it again. Same format, same players, higher stakes. This Friday's meeting happens at Elmendorf Air Base in Alaska. The location isn't random. Alaska used to belong to Russia. They sold it to America in 1867 for $7 million. Putin knows this. Trump knows this. It's symbolism Putin loves. The White House is calling this a listening exercise. That's diplomatic speak for we have no idea what's going to happen. Trump himself said it's a feel out meeting. He'll know in the first few minutes if Putin wants a ceasefire. But here's what makes this terrifying. Ukraine won't be there. The country actually fighting this war gets no seat at the table. Trump has already started talking about land swapping. He says there will be some territory exchanges between Russia and Ukraine for Ukraine's own good. The problem is Ukraine controls almost none of Russian territory. So what exactly would they be swapping? Vladimir Zelensky made his position crystal clear. Ukraine will not give land to the occupier. Period. European leaders agree. You can't negotiate away someone else's country without them in the room. Putin sees this differently. He wants four entire Ukrainian regions, Donetsk, Kherson, Luhansk, and Zaporizhia. Russia already claims to own these areas. They just don't fully control them yet. Putin's demand would force Ukraine to abandon what military experts call their fortress belt. These are major cities with defense systems Ukraine has spent 11 years building. The timing isn't coincidental either. Russian forces are advancing in eastern Ukraine right now. They are gaining ground around the coal mining town of Dobropilya. Putin wants battlefield leverage before he sits down